everyone, welcome to a new video. So we're going to do a massive book haul. So I have been keeping a running list of all the books I've purchased in the last 6 months, and it's a lot. It's over 100. I think there's like 115. Hopefully this won't be too long of a video. In order to shorten it down so you're not here for an hour, I've decided I'm not going to give a synopsis on every single book. So if you want to, you can pause the video and then go look it up yourself, because I just don't have the time. There's so many books and I just don't want to be here forever and make you sit through it for forever. So hopefully you still enjoy seeing what I bought, even if I can't tell you everything about every single one. And let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and also, I didn't include any books that were part of my book buying video. If you missed it, I'll link it at the end. I may have slipped up, there may be some in there that I missed, but I really tried not to do repeats. So if you saw what I bought during my book shopping video, then it won't be in this one. These will be all new ones. So anyways, outside of that, oh, and the library haul. So I didn't put any from the library haul either. So I will also link that one at the end. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start out with my Book of the Month Club books, and I have two romances. The first one is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center, and I actually already read this one and I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then I got Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I have not read this one yet. I haven't read anything by this author yet, but I'm glad to get started at some point. It's a little bit intimidating because for a romance, it's like pretty thick. It's like over 400 pages, I think. Or just about 400 pages, which for a romance, that's a long romance. And then I have some thrillers. I got The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, Someone in the Attic by Andrea Mara. I'm very excited to read this one. This one should be in my wrap-up video for November, because this is the next book I plan on reading when I finish the one I'm on now. So look forward to that book review. A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. This one, I guess, is actually the third in a series, and I haven't read the first two books, which is his famous one that he's known for. This is the third one, so I guess I need to read the other two first. And then I got House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen, and the last one, At the Wedding by Jason Rekulak, and I'm so excited for this one because his last release, which was Hidden Pictures, I absolutely adore that book. It was my best book of, was it 2023 or was it the prior year? I think it was 2023. But anyways, very much looking forward to this one. And now we're moving on to the horror books. I got Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. I'm very much looking forward to reading The Nightmare Man from this author because I hear it's really good. But unfortunately, I read Mr. Lullaby and it just wasn't really for me. It just didn't really work. And so even though this one has an amazing premise, I'm afraid it's going to be like Mr. Lullaby, where it sounds better than it's executed. So we shall see. Then we have Dearest. I'm hoping to read this one in May because it has like a creepy child in it and it's about motherhood and stuff. Then we have The Book of Witching, which from the title, it's about witches. So always excited to read a book about witches. Spitting Gold. This one is like a historical seance type book, which I always love. I love books about seances and spiritualism and all of that stuff, so very excited to read this one. And then the last, I have Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman, and I read this from my book club last month, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, a really solid horror book. Okay, so those are all the books that I got from Book of the Month, so now I'm going to do the ones that I bought just on my own. The first two are, I think, more cozy mysteries than thriller. But we have Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies, which just, I love that title. And I love these ladies all reading their books because I think they're part of a book club. So that'll be fun. And then I actually picked this one up just yesterday, and it's The Author's Guide to Murder. So it sounds like it's going to be about authors, which I love. And they go to like this house where this famous author lives, but then murder happens and they have to figure out who done it. It sounds like it's going to be a little bit of a detective story because I think the main point of view is from a detective, and he doesn't like Americans because he's British, and he's got these 3 American women who write like cozy mysteries and thrillers and like erotic novels or something. And so he doesn't want to deal with these women, and he's just like, oh, but I have to, because they were the only ones that were in the house at the time when this famous author was killed. So he reluctantly has to interview these ladies. So anyways, it sounds like a fun time. Then I bought I Need You to Read This by Jessa Maxwell. I've already read this one. And while I did enjoy it, it didn't blow me away. I thought the first half was really solid. I really was enjoying it, but then it kind of petered out. Like it just, I don't know, I needed a little bit more from it, but I did enjoy it for what it was. Then I got I'm Not Done With You Yet by Jessie Sutanto and The Haters by Robin Harding. I've only read one book from this author. I think it was called The Birthday Girl or something, and I did not like it. So I'm hoping this will be better because I love the cover and I love the premise. So, and then the next two I no longer have in my possession because I've already unhauled them. But the first one was Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, and I read this for a book club and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Although there were a few problematic things, but I mostly got rid of it just because I knew it's not one I would ever reread. So still a good book, but it is gone now and I have already read it. And then the next one is The Hitchcock Hotel. And this one was pretty disappointing. Like, it was okay. It wasn't the best thing that I've written, though. From that premise and that title and that cover, I just expected so much atmosphere and creepiness and murder and all this stuff. And I don't know, it seemed a little bit lackluster, which was disappointing. So I went ahead and unhauled it. So if you saw my last video, I did an author taste test of Claire Douglas and I thought it went pretty well. And so I wanted to try out some more books from her. So the first one I got was Do Not Disturb. And then I also bought another of her books online, but it has not arrived yet. But it's called The Wrong Sister. So I'm excited to read some more from this author and hopefully I enjoy it as much as I enjoyed two of her other books. So this next thriller is very reminiscent of Misery by Stephen King. It's called Number One Fan by Meg Ellison. So I really love Misery. It's one of my favorite books from Stephen King. And so when I read the premise to this thriller and it sounded very similar, I was excited. So as you can guess, this author gets kidnapped and gets chained in someone's basement and he's her number one fan. So sounds like a good time. This one sounds really good and I thought it would be perfect to read in January because it's very snowy. And it's called Don't Let In the Cold by Keely Parrott. So this is about a girl who goes to this cabin with her new stepsister to kind of do a bonding session type thing. And there's like a massive blackout, so no power, no cell phone service, and a storm rolls in. And then this strange guy just shows up at the cabin seeking sanctuary. So they have to let him in because he'll freeze out there. But after they let him in, they kind of wish they hadn't. And then I got The Fear by Natasha Preston. She's kind of a hit or miss author for me, but hopefully this one works. I have The Woman in the Garden. And this sounds like it's going to be like one of those thrillers where you think your neighbor got killed and nobody believes you, so you're trying to be a sleuth and figure it out yourself type of book. Sounds very, Alfred Hitchcock or whatever. And then I got Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. Everybody's been talking about this book and I want to know what it's about. And then I got Look in the Mirror by Catherine Stedman. I read The Family Game from this author and really liked it. I thought it was really fun, and so I'm very excited to read something else by her. Then You Know Her. This one I really only picked up because it was part of a buy one, get one 50% off, and I needed something else. So this sounds like a woman who was part of the police force, but people don't really take her seriously because she's a woman and she's trying to prove her worth or whatever. So I don't really know. I don't know if this is going to be a good one for me or not, but I picked it up anyway. Then I got Return to Wycliffe Heights by Carol Goodman. So this sounds like it's going to be a little bit like a Jane Eyre retelling in a way. And so this woman gets hired to be a ghostwriter for this other writer and write the sequel to her famous book entitled The Secret of Wycliffe Heights. And so the sequel would be Return to Wildcliff Heights. And so while she's at this woman's house trying to help her write the sequel to her novel, she starts looking at the plot and starts to realize that it's coinciding with some true crime in the area. And so she thinks that's a little bit weird. So anyways, I always like things that's very Rebecca or Jane Eyre-esque, I don't know why, but it draws me in. So I'm excited to read it. And then we have Do What Godmother Says. I don't know that much about this one, but I know it has to do with the painting. So I love the cover. Just thought I'd pick it up and see what it was about. And then A Rip Through Time by Kelly Armstrong. And this one is kind of a sci-fi mystery because it's going to be dealing with time. So she's going to be jumping around into the past. And that's really all I know about this book, but I hear really good things about it. So Kelly Armstrong, I've read things I liked from her and I've read things I don't like from her, so we'll see how this goes. So that's all the thrillers that I've bought, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the horror section. So starting with adult horror, we have The Madness by Dawn Kurtagich. And I've already read this one and I adored it. I loved it. 5 stars, amazing. And this is a modern Dracula retelling, but it reads more like a serial killer book, and I just thought it was very clever and very well done. And then we have The Gathering by C.J. Tudor, and I've been saving this for January because it's got all those snowy vibes. And this is also a modern vampire tale, but I think it's going to be more like a detective or maybe journalist story. I'm not really sure, but it sounds like people know about vampires, like they're out in the open, but people are prejudiced against them, which, I mean, why wouldn't you? They're vampires. But I think that's going to add a lot of complexity and nuance to the story, and so I'm very excited to read this one. Then yet another vampire tale, but a little bit more on the light side. We have Bless Your Heart. So I had to get this one because I read Southern Book Club Guides to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, and I love that book. And this gave me similar vibes to that one, so I'm very excited to read this one. And then I got It Will Only Hurt for a Moment by Delilah S. Dawson. It's about a woman who goes to an artist's retreat and different things go down that are creepy and scary. So this one might be a little bit more thriller than horror. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's like the violence where it kind of teeters on the edge of both genres. But either way, the cover's amazing. The premise sounds interesting, so I'm excited to read it. And then I got Midnight Rooms. This is a gothic tale in the classic style where this woman falls head over heel for a man and gets married and gets whisked along to his manor in the countryside, and then different things happen that are maybe not so good as she thought they were going to be. And then This Cursed House, which I think is also like a gothic haunted house tale, which I'm very excited to read. And then I got Memorials by Richard Chismar. I really enjoyed Chasing the Boogeyman, so I'm excited to read something else from this author. Then Heads Will Roll by Joss Winning. I might wait until summertime for this one because it's about like summer camps. And you know, look at that cover, just love it. But I've heard mixed reviews about this one, so I'm a little bit hesitant, but hopefully it'll work for me and will be a good camp slasher. And then I got We Used to Live Here, and I actually just finished reading this for my book club. So I will wait on my thought until my wrap-up video. And then I got some horror novellas, starting with The Day of the Door by Laurel Hightower. And I haven't read anything by this author yet, but I hear really good things about her, and I'm excited to read it. Then Haunt Sweet Home. I've already read this one, and I really enjoyed it. It's about a woman who gets a job trying to create hauntings for a reality TV show. Then we have The Night Guest and Guillotine, also by Delilah S. Dawson. William, about a man who creates an AI robot that goes wrong. And Flight 171, which is taking place on an airplane. And it says, a supernatural creature hijacks their flight and gives the students a deadly ultimatum. Choose one among them to sacrifice before the end of the flight or the plane will crash. So that one sounds pretty intriguing. And if you couldn't tell by the students part, this is a YA one. And then we have A Good House for Children. This one sounds like it's going to be a haunted house, which is my favorite. Don't Eat the Pie. This is about a woman who gets married into a family, and she doesn't realize until she gets married that this family is awful. And she's very sad and disappointed by this because she doesn't really have any family, and she's always wanted to be part of a great family and have all those memories and stuff, but that's not what she gets when she marries into this family. Then we have Bloody Mary, and as the name suggests, this is about the legend of Bloody Mary. And then I got Wilderness Reform, and this is like Heads Will Roll, where it's supposed to be like a camp slasher type thing about this boy who goes to this camp, and then the camp counselors are not all that they seem to be, so this one could have some supernatural elements to it, I'm not sure. But just like that other book, this has had mixed reviews, so I'm hesitantly excited to read this. But again, probably won't get to it until the summertime. Then I have a Dark Shadows book. So this is kind of the backstory on Angelique, who is the witch in that old TV series, if you've seen it, or if you've seen the new Tim Burton movie. So I thought it sounded interesting. Angelique is a very interesting character, and I'm excited to learn about her. So I don't know, I kind of bought it on a whim. It sounds fun. How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey. And the only book I've read by this author was The 13th Episode, and it wasn't necessarily my favorite. I thought it was really fun in the beginning, but by the end it lost me. So I'm hoping I enjoy this one more. I hear it's pretty meta, so I'm excited to learn about horror movies. And then I got Ghost Mother, which I'm also planning on reading in May because of the title and the premise, but this is about a ghost mother. I don't really know that much about it. I just want to go in blind. I thought it had a really cool cover, and I always love a good ghost story. And then I have Model Home, which is also a haunted house story, but I hear it's going to have a lot of social commentary in it, which can be really fun and really good if done well. If done poorly, it can detract from the story, and it can be too heavy-handed and too, in your face. So we'll see how this one goes. And then we have Where the Dead Brides Gather. I just picked this one up yesterday, as well as I'm a little bit hesitant because I'm afraid it's going to lean a little too fantasy instead of horror. So this is about a young girl whose cousin is getting married, but he will only get to the altar if he can get past this revengeful ghost bride that is trying to stop the wedding. And so she apparently has some kind of supernatural ability that makes her capable of going against these ghost brides. So it sounds like it could be fun, but at the same time, if it's too fantasy, I don't know how I'm gonna like it. So we shall see. And then I got The Italian by Anne Radcliffe because I love a good gothic tale, and Gavin from Gavin Reads It All says it's his favorite classic novel of all time, and so that kind of is what sold me on it. I'd never heard of this book until I heard him talk about it. Then we have On the Cliffs of Foxglove Manor by Jamie Jo Wright. This is another gothic novel. I really like gothic novels, so I haven't read anything by this author yet, but I have bought quite a few of her books because they all sound amazing. Then I have a couple of Frankenstein retellings. We have Frankenstein's Monster and Unnatural Creatures. And then I have The Specimen, which has to do with like body snatching and resurrectionists, which is a topic that I highly enjoy. And then I have a couple of like old-timey mysteries, I think they are. So we have Beloved Poison and then Dark Asylum. So these are like historical murder mysteries, I think. But anyway, they sounded interesting, so I kind of hate that they're ex-library books. Okay, we're going to move on to our YA books. The first one is Say Her Name. This is also a book about Bloody Mary. And we have Silver in the Blood. This is about the Florescu line from Dracula, if you know anything about history. So like Radu and Dacia, or Dacia, however you say her name. I already read this one and I enjoyed it. She made it set in like 1800 Victorian England though, so I thought that was pretty cool. But then they also go to Romania. I finally made the leap and I finally bought Battle Royale. So I was intimidated because it's like huge, and I've heard really good things, and then I've heard mixed things where they said it wasn't as great as they thought. And I hear this compared to Hunger Games like over and over and over again, and I really do enjoy Hunger Games. But at the same time, I'm afraid with the amount of characters that are in this book that I'm not going to be able to connect to any of them. So we'll see. And then I got Such Lovely Skin. This is about a doppelganger. Then I bought the newest Adam Cesare book, which is called Influencer, which, the name kind of tells you what it's about the evils of social media. And then I got Seasick, and this is like a slasher or murder mystery set on a cruise ship. And then I got The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, but it's like on the bottom of a big stack of books on top of another shelf, and I just didn't want to get it down. So I'm just gonna have it for you right here. But this is the last in her series that she wrote about the Hawthorne family. And they have like this game where you have to win the game in order to get their inheritance. So I've enjoyed this series. I still have this one that I just bought and the one before it to still read. So I've read the first 3 in the series. Then we have Two Sides to Every Murder by Danielle Valentine. And this is a camp slasher, and I really enjoyed it. Then we have Our Wicked Histories, Hatchet Girls, which is like a retelling of Lizzie Borden, Militia or Militia, I'm not sure how you say this, but this takes place at like an abandoned carnival. And I believe it's also a slasher, or maybe something supernatural. Then I have A Family of Killers. This is about the Benders. And I have Rotters. This is another book about resurrectionists and body snatchers. And then if you did watch my library book haul, I got Born of Deception, and I needed to buy the first one, and so I went ahead and did that. So I have Born of Illusion. And I think this has to do with like magicians, but I think it might also have spiritualism in it. I'm not 100% sure. And then I have some vintage YA books, starting with The King, R.L. Stine. We have some Fear Street books. We have Double Date and Killer's Kiss. And then I found an R.L. Stine book I'd never heard of, and it's not Fear Street and it's not point horror. It's just like on its own. It's called Broken Date. And it's a little bit bigger. Whoops. That's backwards. It's a little bit bigger than the standard shape that it came in before, so just wanted to nab it because I'd never heard of it. And then I have some point horror books. We have Camp Fear, The Ripper, Nightmare Hall, The Experiment, and The Cheerleader. Okay, so that's all my YA books. So now we're going to go on to the middle grade. Starting with R.L. Stine, we have The Beast, about a haunted roller coaster. And then I always pick up the newest books by K.R. Alexander, and we have The Dead Girl's Diary. Oh, I guess I have another R.L. Stine book, I forgot. I also picked up a Goosebumps book, so we have Phantom of the Auditorium. I love this cover. I've loved it since I was a kid. And then these 2 I picked up at my daughter's school. We have Killer Harvest and The Book of Bad Things. This was part of the book fair. And then we have Nightmare in the Backyard. I'm thinking this is aliens. They're camping out in a little tent on a sleepover, and they come into contact with this alien race, or perhaps a cryptid, not really sure. And then we have It Came from the Trees, and I believe this is a Bigfoot tale. Okay, so now I have 4 fantasy books that I picked up. First we have Sally's Lament. So this is a Nightmare Before Christmas book about Sally. And basically, this is how the story would have gone if Sally had been the one to find Christmas Town instead of Jack Skellington. So I'm planning on reading this next month in December, and I'm very excited. And then we have The 13th Child. She kind of writes on the edge of horror and fantasy, so I wasn't sure which category to put her in. But I believe this has to do with death, like the main character is like Death's goddaughter or something. But I love this cover. And I love Erin Craig. I've loved everything I've read from her, and I'm very excited to read this. Then we have Wisteria. This is the final in a trilogy, starting with Belladonna. And then we have The Trials of Empire, and this is also the 3rd book in a trilogy. And then I have 3 manga. The first one's Goodbye Eri. And I think it has to do with a camera or a phone or something. I'm not really sure, but I heard it's a little bit creepy, and horror manga is my favorite. Although this might be more sci-fi too, I don't know. And then I got Deserter and Alley by Junji Ito. Junji Ito is my favorite. So I had to pick his new one, which was Alley. And then I'm just working on buying his backlist. I've read them all from the library, but I haven't bought all of them, and I would like to at some point. So Deserter, I just picked up on a whim just to get in my collection. So then I have a few science fiction novels. The first one's a YA, and it's called The Stranded. And this is more of a dystopian novel, so I think this is part of a series, and this is the first one. But basically, the world is ending, and they all end up on this cruise ship, and they can no longer be on land because it's unsafe and they won't survive. So they've been stuck on this cruise ship for like a generation or something, and they're just trying to survive. And so now half of them want to try to get to land to see if it's livable, and the rest of them are like, no, we just stay here. We're safe if we stay here. So I used to be super into dystopian novels. I don't read them very much anymore, but I would like to revisit this genre that I formerly loved. And then we have We Are Satellites. And I only grabbed this because this author is the author of Home Sweet Haunt, and I happen to really enjoy that one. And so I just wanted to see what else the author had written, and it looks like she had this science fiction novel, which sounded kind of interesting. I can't remember now what it's about, but I guess you can look it up if you're at all interested. And then we have Escape Velocity by Victor Manibo, and this is the same author that did The Sleepless. And this is like a caste system book, I think. So like the rich people can go to a restaurant on the moon or Mars or somewhere, and it kind of shows the disconnect in the caste system. So I don't know exactly what this is about, but it sounds interesting, and I love this cover. I think it's gorgeous. Then we have Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and this is his latest book. And it's a standalone, which is really good and really nice sometimes to just get a standalone. And I believe this is humans, they're exploring the universe and they land on this planet, and they could tell that an alien race formerly was here. And so they're super excited because this is a big discovery that they actually discovered alien life. But it looks very old and ancient, like nobody's actually been there in quite some time. But is that really the case? Dun, dun, dun. I'm excited to find out. Then we have We Are Legion, We Are Bob. And I've talked about this before on my channel, so you probably know what this is by now. But basically this guy, he signs up for a program where he can put his thoughts and memories into a machine and live forever type thing. And so now there's like copies of him. So it's part of the Bobiverse because it all came from Bob originally. It's very fun, very kooky. His writing reminds me a lot of, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the guy that wrote The Martian and Project Hail Mary, it sounds a lot like him. Maybe not quite so sophisticated in my opinion, but still very fun, very reminiscent. And I first listened to this on audiobook, and the narrator was the same guy that narrated The Martian and Project Hail Mary, so maybe that's a big part of it too. But I just wanted a physical copy because I listened to it on audio and I wanted to add it to my collection. And then I bought Dune. So Dune, along with Ender's Game, are my two favorite all-time science fiction series. And Dune I already owned, but I've always hated it. It was hardback, but it was just ugly, and I just never liked it. And so I saw this gorgeous, gorgeous book with these blue sprayed edges and this really cool cover, and I just had to buy it. I just had to replace that old ugly one I had. So if you don't mind a little bit of an ugly cover, I am selling it on pangobooks.com if you are interested in purchasing it. There's nothing wrong with it aside from I just don't like the cover. Okay, now we're moving on to our last category, which is romance. So the first one I have is a historical romance called Along a Breton Shore. And this is about the French Revolution, and the main character and the guy that she ultimately falls in love with are on either side of the conflict. So I thought that added some nuance and some tensions. This is actually the second one. There's a first one. I haven't read the first one yet either, but I'm really excited to get to this duology at some point soon. Then we have Nora Goes Off Script. At my in-person book club, every year at the end of the year we exchange books, and so this is the one I got, and the person that gave it to me says it's really good, so I take her word for it. And it's about a screenwriter, but then her husband ends up breaking up with her. I'm not 100% sure if it's her real husband or her work husband. It was a little bit unclear when I read the back, but something happens, and then she ends up being cast as the actress in a new show as she starts falling for her co-star. And then we have Savor It. I actually don't remember what this is about, but Gabby from Gabby's Reads really liked it, and so I went ahead and picked it up. And then we have Finding Mr. Right, and this is by Kelly Armstrong, and I've read some fantasy and some horror from this author. I didn't know that she wrote romance as well, so I was interested in reading something from her that was romance. And judging by the title, it's going to be about authors, which is always a personal treat for me. I love reading about authors, so just thought it'd be fun. And then The Blast from the Past by Lucy Score and The Body in the Backyard. And this is like a romance murder mystery series. This is book 3 and 4. So I already owned the first 2, and I just wanted to continue with the series, even though I haven't read any of them yet. So I'll get there eventually. And then we have A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. And as far as I know, this is about a woman that gets sent into a book. Like literally, she wakes up and she's in this favorite fictional town of hers, and she meets this fictional guy that she falls in love with that's from one of her favorite novels. So I thought that might be fun if done well, because it could also be pretty cheesy, so we'll see. And then I have 3 romances that kind of have like a horror-ish bent to them. So we have An Enchanting Case of Spirits, Haunted Ever After, and Happy Medium. And then I just picked this one up yesterday. This is called The Davenport More Than This. And this is the second one in a duology. I read The Davenports, was it last year or the year before? I forget. It might have been 2022. And I loved it. I thought it was so good. It's historical, set at the turn of the century, 1900s, about this really rich African-American family. And there's like 4 different point of views, and they all have their own love stories. And I just thought it was really good, especially for being YA. Like, I was super involved in all of the storylines, but I didn't know it wasn't a standalone. So I got to the end and was like, what the heck? Where's the happily ever after? This is like half of a story. So I didn't realize there was going to be a second one, so I have been patiently waiting for this one to come out so I can finish up the storyline. I apologize that you guys can hear my dogs barking in the backyard. I've tried to get them to stop, and I just bound to determined to bark at the dog next door. So I apologize for that, but that is all the books I have for you. I hope you found some new books that you can check out for yourself to see if it's something you want to add to your TBR. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I post every Fridays. Please hit that notification bell and the subscribe button. Like it if you liked this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.